Hello and welcome. I'm back with the episode 10 of the Web Element series. Today, on the auspicious occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi, we are going to have a special episode. And you can see it why. As you can see, we can simply hover over that button like div and the three images, one of the Shubh Ganesh Chaturthi, one of Sri Ganesha himself, and two plates appear only on the hover. Today you are going to learn how to create this. So let's dive into it. We'll start with creating the files. I've already put all the required resources that are needed in a folder which I named episode 10. So I'll just start creating the files. The first file is index10.html and the second file is style10.css. So I would close the sidebar and give them equal space on the window. So we'll begin with linking the CSS file with the HTML file. So we can simply write exclamation mark and enter. Now we link, and the href would obviously be style10.css. I would also rename the title to all caps Shubh Ganesh Chaturthi. Yes, and I would save it. And we can once check it in the live server. So we can simply refresh it, episode 10, and here's the HTML file. As you can see, it has been renamed. Now we have to create a div. I will name the div all, because all of the other divs and other elements we will require would be inside this. You will later on see, and it would be justified to create a div containing everything else. Now we need to create another div, which I'll give the name heading. It will contain the image where the Shubh Ganesh Chaturthi was written. So obviously now we would be adding the image. We do not require an alternate, but still if in case the image doesn't load, we'll have a backup. So I have named that image text.png. So I'll write text.png, and here we can simply write Shubh Ganesh Chaturthi. So let's save it, and you can see the image has appeared. Now we have to create another div outside this div. So div, and we'll name it, I will name it hover container, because it is the container on which we'll hover to bring all these effects into working. So we'll add another div which I'll name text, and it will have hover over me written. So as you can see, there is this hover over me written here. Now we'll create another div which would be outside of the text div but inside the hover container. So I would write div dot. Now I would name it picture, because it will contain the pictures. So the first image would be, I would give the image tag also class name, and the class name would be, I would name it main. And the source would be, I have written the name of that file as ganpati.png. So I would write it. We do not require an alternate here. And you can see that the image has appeared here. So HTML is simply for bringing all the required elements into the screen. And the actual work is done by the CSS to arrange and to decide that when what needs to be shown. Now we'll create another div, which I would be literal and I would write the class name as offerings. It may even work without the div, but if in case we require to do some changes, it's better. Also, okay, I would do this one. So I have named the image modak.png. They are simply two images, but I have put them in a single div so that I can give some properties to them. One more thing you can do is to give them a same class name. Like I would use that way because same class names are rather easy to handle. And we can give it two class names by simply writing plates and put a space and then write the second one you want to give. I would simply copy paste it. So copied and pasted. The second image I had was named modak2.png. So I have simply imported it. As you can see, here are the two images. Now that's the entire HTML we would require for this project. So now we can migrate to the CSS file. And as always, CSS begins with body. And display flex, justify content center, align item center, and then height, which would be 100 VH, margin 0, and then background color. I found some background colors that are most correlated to Shri Ganesh, and I have the hex code written near me, so I would simply write them. So FF8 F7D, and as you can see, this is the color that we have obtained. Now it's time to work on the all properties, and all we have to do for its properties is display block. I've simply done this so that whenever we are using all the elements, like the first image that I have written text.png, after that the button, and then the images, then they should all not come into a single horizontal line. They should remain in an order that I set myself. So this is simply for that reason, because by it would have gone to flex and then all of them would have come in a single horizontal line. Now we have to write properties for the hover container. Sorry for that. So the first thing we need to write is position, and it would be relative. Then we need to give some width. And I would give it the width of 600 pixels. And we'll give it a height of 50 pixels. It is simply that before that hover, what size of the div we require. As you can't see it currently because we haven't given it a different color yet. We'll be giving it soon. But you can see all these elements are now in a straight line, which is a vertical line and not a horizontal line, because horizontal line wouldn't look good. I may afterwards show that what it would have looked like without that property. So now I would change the cursor also. Cursor would be pointer now. And you can simply see this change. As you can see, it is turning into that hand figure from that arrow. Now we need to also add a transition, because transition is simply how it should behave whenever we hover over it. So I would give it a transition of height 0. I would give it 3 second, and ease. I would give ease in out. We can change it later on. It is simply how it would later on react. Currently it has no change over the properties, but once we put the hover properties, then it will come to action. Now we need to give the properties to the text, which is this div. We are not talking about that image, but this div. And now we need to give it 100% width, height again 100%, then background color. And I would give it a background color of another color I found on the internet, and it is D5273E. 3E. And you can see what this color is. I may also make some extra changes that I didn't make previously, such as I would give it a border radius to just make it look a bit better. And I would give it a border radius of, suppose we have put that to 50, so 25 pixels. Okay, sorry, we haven't decided to keep it here. Although we can, there is no such problem. But we can also give it here and it should work. If it doesn't, then I'll be working on it later on. As you can see, now it is curved. And now, as we have specified the background color, now it's turn for all the display properties. So display, flex, again the same, justify content, align item center. And now we'll give the font size. And I would give it a font size of 24 pixels. And again a transition. And the transition would be of opacity this time, because the text has to disappear and the images have to appear now. The opacity should go in 0.3 seconds. Again, ease in out. If you watch, the only difference you would see is that hover over me is now in center. And again, the transition would only be in working when we put the hover properties. Now it's turn for the picture. We can't see that picture, I think, for now. No, we can see for now. but it would soon disappear. So again, give it a display flex property. Then justify contents, not baseline, center. And now position, and it should be absolute. Now give it some top 0. Left 0. And now width should go width should go to 100%. And the height should also go to 100%. And the opacity should be 0. As you can not see anything, it's because of this property. We can comment it out for now. So now we can see everything for now. As you can see, the image is currently looking small. It's because we haven't given the hover properties, because in the hover properties we would increase the height, and also we have to give that image some, you can say, properties, which would again only be working when we put the hover properties. So for now the image will look like this, or maybe even it won't even be visible because we have to put the opacity at 0. So now we have to give it again transition of opacity. And we have to give it an opacity of 0.6 seconds. Again, ease in and out. Now it's turn for the main, which was the class name for the main image, which is of Sri Ganesh. So height, %100. As you can see, there is no change. Also, take care that you have to use height 100% here, because if you would be using width, then the effect I showed you previously, there you can't do those plates to be visible at that places, because the image will expand further. I may also show the other problems that you may face if you do not follow the tutorial properly, so that you can be cautious beforehand. And the second thing I would do is Z index. You may have never heard of this property, but it is of great use in such works where you have to overlap things. Because here the images would be overlapping, and Z index is simply like if you give a Z index of any negative value, then it will be at the back side. And of any image that has a Z index of 0 or 1, like the negative value means that image, div, or any component that has a Z index that is negative would be behind each of the other, you can say, containers which would be having a higher Z index. So higher the Z index, the more further, not further, the nearer they are to the user. Now it's turn for the heading. In case you do not remember, heading was the Shubh Ganesh Chaturthi image. So now I would give it an opacity of 0 because it also has not to be visible until and unless we hover. So opacity of 0, and again a transition of opacity in 0.3 seconds, and again ease in out. Now we have to give properties for the first, which is the first plate of modak. So it will have, or we can simply do a little bit lazy work, like just give them some properties together. Although there is only one required property, but still I'm just doing this. Also, using such complex things in a simple project can also help you better understand and use those things. Like maybe whenever working in a complex project, at that time you may not rather easily understand these things. Like how can I give two things the same property? But you may easily understand that in such a simple way, like working on a smaller project. So now, as it will be on the left side, so I will give it a value of left 0. And here this has to be on the right side, which is exactly opposite. So we'll give it a value of 0 on the right. And now we have to write the properties of offerings. First comes the Z index, about which I already told you that it has to appear. Then comes the overflow hidden, so that there is no problem when the images are overlapping. And then comes background size. Background size is simply again responsible for causing no problems while overlapping of images or divs. And now again the transition. There is a lot of use of transition in this video. Although I know I spoke this late because we are more than halfway through of this video. But still, it's a good way to practice the transitions. So now we have read plates, which is again width would be 40%. Won't put the width at 100% because of an obvious reason. And most of the things are invisible right now because this doesn't have the property yet, but will soon have it. So I may also on this. And nothing else is visible except what has to be visible since the beginning. So now the other property we would need is top, and it would be 300 pixels because later on we would be giving the height, and I would give it a height of 475 pixels. So with 300 pixels it may look pretty good, like it would be where I want it to be. Now it's the time for giving the hover properties. So first comes the height increase, which, as I said, 475 pixels. So let's show you at least this thing. As you can see now, it is working. Also, I'll do one thing. I'll remove the border radius. So I'll put it to 0%. Zero pixels. Okay, although there is no problem because it will cause no problem to us because the border radius isn't even going to be visible to us. And further we go, again, hover container. We also needed hover after this. Hover and dot text, which consists of the hover over me, and it will have a opacity of 0 now because we want the text to disappear so you can see it. The entire div gets invisible because of this reason. As you can see, we have given the background color to the text div and not to hover container. Because of that reason, the color will just dissociate itself. But still, it looks quite good to me. Again, hover container, hover. Now it's turn for the picture div. So now we have to put the opacity to 1 so that the pictures appear themselves. So here we are appearing the pictures. Why isn't the second picture appearing? There seems to be a little bit problem. We will solve it later. Let's first complete it. So we'll also do it for the offerings to be properly appearing. So opacity 1, and we'll put the left. Wait, I don't think we would require it. Ah yes, the left was used already above. And now we'll give a property to all on hover. This is because I tried to put that. Wait. I tried my best to find a way so that the heading appears itself when we are just simply hovering over that hover container, but I found no way for now because I planned all this almost instantaneously. I just created it and I was like, I should share it. So opacity 1. Let's save it and let's give it a look. As you can see that it is appearing because of this reason. Let me show you. If you see this, all of these are actually inside the all div. Like, let me show you from this side. Like, if you see what the all div is, you can see it is completely covering everything. So whenever we hover over that div, it simply triggers the all also. So it was just a little bit cheating, to be honest, but it works, so there should be no problem. Okay, now I know why it didn't work. I didn't change the name here. And now it is completely functional. Also, that if in case you do not remember, we used this here, which I said I would show you later on. If we weren't using this, then what would have happened? So see this, and it is somehow functional. Okay, so maybe I changed the properties this much later on because I did that in the beginning to keep it in a better positions. But maybe later on, unexpectedly, I fixed the problem myself and I didn't even realize. So here it is. You can get the code from the comment section. It is I would post it there so you can easily study it. And for anything else, keep tuned for the next videos. Subscribe, like, and goodbye.